Let's talk to Cornelia Meyer, who's the CEO of MRL Corporation, a business consultancy company. Lovely to have you with us, Cornelia.
Morning, Cornelia.
So, this state dinner, first major state dinner that the White House has held in about 3 years, but the first major state visit by a French president to the United States in 20 years. This is a big meeting.
Since
and what's it saying?
It's saying that both are working, France and the US are working very hard to overcome the rift that happened in when the French president decided not to go with to Iraq. So it's trying to patch up that rift, and you know, notably, mostly they are talking about defense, and they're talking how they work together well in Mali and other sort of hotspots. So it is all about defense, and it is all about trying to patch up that rift.
You know, one of the UK newspapers suggested that perhaps President Hollande, Monsieur Hollande, could take the place of the special relationship that was once held with the UK and the US.
Well, I think there is a little bit, it's not quite, that's a bit cheeky, but there's something in that, in the sense that there is a little bit of a hint to the Germans who say we now want to do more in defense, and also to the British who have recently not been wanting to go along with the US, who saying, look guys, you're not the only ones, we have some other mates too.
Now, the I, money is no object to flood relief effort. This is quoting the Prime Minister saying he's calling for a great national effort to respond to the emergency. What do you make of his efforts as you know, Commander-in-Chief in this crisis in the UK?
Well, first of all, our hearts have to go out to all these, you know, people whose lives have been devastated by this flood. It's the right noises, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Promising money is one thing, dispersing it is another. I believe it when it's dispersed, and I'm glad they stopped the spat. They had a spat between some of our government agencies, you know, the Environment Agency versus some other ministers, on who is to blame for what. So I think it's good that they're trying to now pull together and all work towards helping those devastated people.
And you know, you talk about devastation, and the Times has actually just taken the slightly different view, saying that 4 months of flooding will trigger depression, because it's looking at the mental health problems that people are going to suffer, because many describe their homes being flooded as almost a bereavement, because your personal possessions, your memories are lost.
Imagine your bedroom, your shoes, your clothes, your cutlery, your whatnot, everything swimming around in your apartment or in your house. That's horrible.
What impact do you think it's going to have? I mean, this article talks a lot about the fact that scientists are warning about, you know, the fact that the rain will stop, but for a long time the country is going to be affected by this because of the water tables rising so much. It'll have effects on sewage, etc., etc. There's a lot more to this, isn't there?
There's a lot more to this. The aquifers are just totally flooded. And what I would actually like to hear from the government here is also, what does this mean for the water supply and for the sewage in which areas? You know, tell us now if we have to go and buy bottled water or something. You know, this sort of information flow would probably be welcome.
Let's talk about the Financial Times. The US edition of the Financial Times has Janet Yellen, the head of the Federal Reserve, on the front page. She's given her debut testimony to the House Financial Services Committee yesterday. There have been lots of noises from emerging markets, very concerned about the effect of tapering. And for our viewers, we're going to get you to explain tapering, but also why they've been upset and why she now says, actually, I need to think about what's happening at home first.
Well, tapering is, she's weaning the US economy off the bond buying spree that they were on the QE, the quantitative easing, and so she's calming down by sort of 10 billion a month, essentially. But she's right. She has to look after the US economy, which has been, you know, doing quite well, and so she's doing the right thing. You can't keep the US economy basically on steroids for so long. And what I would say to the emerging markets that are complaining, if you have a very big current account deficit and foreign reserves that are less or just a little bit over a year, which means it's iffy how you can meet your short-term liabilities, well, then really it's your turn to put your book in order.
It's interesting actually, because one of the central bankers quoted in this article is the head of the Indian central bank, and he's relatively new to that job, and he's seen as doing a very good job in India. It's quite a different character, and he says, he's quoted here as saying the US, you know, he's hit out at the US for washing their hands of emerging markets. Is that perhaps too strong in terms of criticism of Janet Yellen, who, you know, the headline is Yellen snubs emerging nations?
She's not snubbing emerging nations. Her mandate is to look after the US economy.
Let's talk about Governor Mark Carney. He's presenting today the bank's latest growth, inflation and unemployment forecasts. What's he going to... Well, it's not as much what he's going to say, it's how's he going to say it, because he needs to address how he's addressing us.
Well, yes. I mean, we've had forward guidance, and he said when unemployment is down to 7%, he will raise interest rates. Now unemployment is at 7.1%, and he will probably not want to. It's too early to raise interest rates, and he needs to justify that. But you know, it's the same coin, just a different side of what Yellen said. Yellen said essentially the same thing. She said she will not raise interest rates for some time to come.
When it comes to this sort of forward guidance and reading between the lines with central banks, I mean, obviously people will make decisions in financial markets on his statement that when unemployment is at 7%, I'll make my move. And they're probably thinking, hang on a second, you know, all the pawns are changing on the chessboard here.
Yes, but I think a lot of people will be very relieved, because if you're out there and you're trying to run a business and you need to take on debt, you're very, very happy if you have less. So it's as it says in this article, it's a nice problem to have, that the economy is doing better than expected.
Shall I have a quick word on Shirley Temple? She died at the age of 85.
Yeah, she was iconic, and I think for the generation of my late mother, you know, who died recently, aged 93, that was an iconic figure. But, you know, all power to her. She turned her life around. She became an ambassador. After being a child star, she became a very productive member of society.
Quick word on Cronenberg as well. The advertising watchdog has shot it down for not being French enough. Explain.
Well, yeah, but there's this ad with a footballer and a lot of French farmers around saying how wonderful Cronenberg is, and they're right. It doesn't do what it says on the tin. It's brewed here, and we should be proud of it being brewed here, and. You know, if you advertise, you should advertise the right thing. For instance, you can't call something champagne that's not grown in the Champagne.